Good morning. Happy Saturday. Second day of the new year. So my first question is, have you quit your New Year's resolution yet? I always laugh at people that are always stressing on these New Year's resolutions. Oh my God, the calendar day changed and there's some numbers involved and it makes my commitment go so much higher to making things happen in my world. That's a bunch of crap. Okay. Number one, nothing changed because of the calendar. Number two, what I want to talk to you about today is the difference between structured discussion and learning. And this kind of sounds like the same thing until you understand where I'm going here. So, number one, structured discussion happens all day, every day. Sometimes it's less structure, sometimes it's more. Usually less if people are just kind of talking about something they heard about. A lot of structured discussion actually comes from experience, having done something. And so somebody is telling you about a thing that they know about. But it's a back and forth exchange of information. And that's as far as it goes. And this is sort of the crux of where we are in today's world. Is trying to move forward and make progress and improve yourself and do all the things that are based around a New Year's resolution or, whether it's New Year's or not, just trying to move forward in life. This is our whole makeup. We start as little kids, we have no goals. We're just trying to figure out how to stand up and, work off of instinctual interactions. How do I eat and talk and move? But as we grow up into adults, we learn how to engage in structured discussion with the intention that information will help us move forward, right? Will help us go towards whatever it is that we want to accomplish. Now, as children, we are forced to go to school. Not to say school is bad, but it's something that we don't really have a choice on, at least in the modern world. I've been watching a lot of shows based in, third world countries, and it's like a privilege. It's not a right. It's not a forced hand. It is a privilege for children to get to go to a school, right? That was my air quotes, my gloves on. But going to school is the method that they have as the only way to get more information about a thing so that they can move forward and be better and offer more value as they grow up. Because they're finding in these third world countries that the kids that don't go to school continue to go down the same crappy paths of survival, right? I'm gonna, literally I've seen so many of them where their only way to make money is to cut down the trees in the forest. And then they take those trees and they burn them and turn them into charcoal. Or they make them into, log poles for building. Shad, what's up, my man? Whoa, slipping out here on some mud. Not walking. But they're working on such a minimal ability to just survive based on the resources around them. And so their next step is to get their children into schools for these structured discussions. And those structured discussions are there with the intention that the information discussed is then going to be valuable. Now, not to say that it isn't valuable, but it's only valuable if you take the next step that allows it to go from a structured discussion to actual learning. And that difference, this is the magic nugget right here, guys. So if you want to write this down, the difference between a structured discussion and learning is implementation. Using the information that you get during this structured discussion. And that is what will take you to where you want to go. I don't care what it is that you're trying to accomplish that you don't already have in your world. You have to do shit. Sorry, but I get upset about this sometimes because I see so many people out here striving for information. Guys, information is endless. There is so much worldly information available right now. We have Google. We have a smartphone in our pocket all the time that gives us whatever information We want to have at our fingertips. I don't care how crazy your question is. You can ask Google. It will give you some kind of structured discussion that already went down, and you can pretty much get a good idea about what the answer to that question is. But at the end of the day, guys, I don't care how much information you take in, how many structured discussions you're involved in, how many people you talk to who have experience, knowledge, you will never get to that level unless you add experience to your own interactions. You have to take what you learn and apply it. So let me give you an example. My son, man, he's such a good example for me. He's 16 years old, going through the high school game right now. In this crazy world of COVID we're in, school has changed. Now, the baseline school, first of all, I live in Idaho. Idaho is like 48th in the country in ratings for school testing. We're sort of on the bottom. I don't really care what that number is because it's not a reflection of me. I didn't create the schools and I don't pass along the information from them, but the structure they had in Idaho already sucked. Their structured discussions were already not working out to get a high representation of what that information was by coming out with good test scores, okay? So it was already bad before COVID. Now we got COVID in the mix, and it changed the way that they have to implement these structured discussions. They now have, my son does not go to school on Mondays. Nobody in our area goes to school on Mondays. So they have 2 A and B days. You get to go to school on Tuesday and Thursday or Wednesday and Friday, where you are physically involved in a structured discussion. Outside of that, there is no instruction whatsoever. The teachers are not involved other than to assign more information for you to read or to watch or whatever, but they are not involved. It is 100% on the kids to get that information themselves, okay? And the only implementation factor within this school zone and within almost all schools anymore is a test. It is a temporary regurgitation of what it is that was talked about during the structured discussion. Now, guys, I don't know if you understand how this works, but when we have a discussion and we talk about a topic, and then we go back and we say, hey, what do you remember of that discussion? Write down your answers. That is a forced learning pattern based on temporary memory. Short-term memory is being ingrained into our children because that is the easiest way for schools to operate, is to have a structured discussion, give you a test on whatever the hell it is that you just talked about, ask you to write down whatever answers you can remember, and then we move on. No, we're not going to keep talking about that thing. We already talked about the thing. We're moving on to the next thing. Wait a minute. When do we use this information? No, we just want to make sure that you got the information. That's the only point of the test. Did you listen when we had the structured discussion? Can you prove that you listened to the structured discussion by writing down the answers to a test? That doesn't make any sense in the world of trying to move forward with that information being valuable and applicable. Tracy McNeil, good to see you. So when we're going through school, our kids start at about 5 years old, and they go through school till age 18 or so, 17, 18, depending on when your birthday is. You're talking 12 to 13 years out of your first 17 or 18 based around a temporary memory learning path. Now, guys, the difference in information intake and learning is your ability to get back to that information, to be able to recall what it is that structured discussion was about, so that when it comes time to apply it, you can remember. You can be like, oh yeah, here's what we talked about, so here's what I do in this situation. The doing is the difference. Using the information in an engagement or an activity is the way that learning long-term is established, okay? We are killing our kids right now by putting them into these horrible structured discussion setups and forcing them to learn on a temporary structure and never allowing them or even requiring them to implement the actual knowledge. And this is such a scary thing right now, because we are basically growing these kids through a bunch of stuff. First of all, the structured discussion is based on information that is so old and outdated, it's not even relevant if you tried to implement it anyway. Number two, the structured discussion format and organization that we have right now has completely collapsed to the point where even the information passing back and forth is not happening well, right? And so we're in this situation where, like my son, for example, come back to him. He's very intelligent, going through a lot of honors classes, trying to push himself at the highest level possible through school. And the classes that he's in are very difficult because of the organization of the structured discussion. It's just horrible. They have 2 days in class, 3 days online, and the online stuff is just a bunch of information given to them that they're expected to learn. And then the offline stuff where they actually go to school, they just talk about the crap that they assign them online. So there's not any actual structured discussion going on. And the stuff that they're asking them to learn online is crap that is irrelevant. It's not helpful. Math is a really good example of this. I did math all the way through high school. I took 4 years of math class. I ended at trigonometry as a senior in high school. Now, guys, this is not a bragging point, but it's just a reference so you understand. I tried. I tried to learn as much math as possible. I went through a very large exposure point to different areas of math and on a really high level. There's not a single thing that I can remember from math class except for one thing in trigonometry. I remember a lot of math stuff, but like trig itself, I don't remember a single point of reference. I don't remember any of it except for one, which was the Pythagorean theorem. Now, if you don't know anything about math, the Pythagorean theorem just sounds like foreign language, but that's a squared plus b squared equals c squared. This allows you to determine what the longest side of a triangle is and how to create an angle. The only reason that I remembered that was because I was able to take that to a different class called construction. Construction class, we actually built stuff. It was pure movement from structured discussion to implementation, where I had to figure out how to make a corner square. I had to figure out to make sure that things were lined up specifically by doing it. And when you go to build something, the math is all well and good, but if you don't put it in there and implement how you know that math works, and you try to build something, that thing ain't gonna be very strong. It's gonna fall down. So the implementation of the structured discussion information was what allowed me to learn how to apply the Pythagorean theorem. And learning only happens when you apply the knowledge. And so that was the one thing that I got to learn from math moving forward, was the one thing that I actually had as we're gonna use this in real life. Now, today, my son is still going through these classes. We got to a middle semester, they're at Christmas break, and we had a choice. We had a choice to continue down the same path or look at what our other options were. Now, guys, I hate to be all upset today, but the schooling thing is a real frustration for me because I went through it myself. Coming up in June is going to be my 20-year anniversary out of high school. Not to say I'm feeling old, but I've seen a lot of experience post-high school now, and looking at the information that they gave me in high school, almost none of it had any relevancy or applicability, no implementation options after about 6th or 7th grade. Right? And so I get into life, and I've taken all this school. I even went to college. I went to college afterwards for 3 years. I got a degree. I was paid to go to school. It still was something that was not worth my time because the information being given to me was irrelevant and not useful. It had no relevancy in today's world because that structured discussion was based around old stuff that had been established as curriculum decades and decades ago. And it takes so long for the updates to happen that the structured discussion cannot keep up with evolution. Things change so fast around us that we can't put that information back into the structured discussions fast enough, because the process for applying that and approval and all that stuff is just horrible. So the schooling system right now has really one main benefit: social engagement. Okay? You get to be around other children around your same age and you learn how to interact with them. That was the biggest benefit of school. But with COVID coming out, that's not even a thing. You're not allowed to be within 6 feet of somebody. You got to wear a mask over your face. Like, everything has just taken away the ability to social engage because of the current circumstances. So now that we don't have that as one of the pieces that's in school, holy crap, what is the actual value of going through and having a whole bunch of structured discussion about information that's not relevant and no way to actually apply it? And that's the biggest frustration that was the tipping point for us. Is my son has taken Spanish. He started Spanish in freshman year. He's now a sophomore. And he's a voracious learner. He really wants to accelerate his path and go through things quickly. And in Spanish, the beginning level was just like, okay, here's how it kind of works. Here's some of the grammar things, whatever. And you learn some of the words. But like any foreign language or any piece of information that you go through a structured discussion, the only way to remember that is to apply it. And so in Spanish, in order for him to move forward and learn more, he had to speak Spanish to other people, which require them to also speak Spanish back to him. Now, he's in a class with some Spanish-speaking people already, but most of them aren't. They're new to Spanish. And because of the way that school is structured, there is no required implementation. There is only a discussion about how things work and what the information is, what the words are. And then there's a test. Hey, did you read these words? Can you show us that you were involved in the structured discussion? Cool. That's a temporary memory set. Once you have done that test, guys, and you can attest to this, right? You learn stuff long enough for the test. As soon as you take a test, that information's gone. You don't remember it 1 minute after that, because there's no requirement for it. There's no reason that you need to learn it, because it's not applicable in the real world. You don't get a chance to actually apply it to anything, so you don't create a memory of using that information. The memory comes from experience. That is the only way that you will actually remember stuff. And when you can apply emotion to an experience that you have in the world, holy crap, are those memories in set, right? My son is struggling with the Spanish thing, not because he doesn't know Spanish, but is because he doesn't really have anybody to implement it with. He doesn't have a person that is willing to sit there and speak Spanish with him. Because the kids who already know how to speak Spanish are so many levels above, because their implementation has been their entire life. They've been speaking Spanish before they got to Spanish class. And so it's this separation of knowledge and education that the kids who don't know Spanish don't really give a crap. They're only taking the class because they just need a foreign language of some kind to graduate high school and get across the road here. And the ones who already know Spanish don't want to talk to him in basic Spanish level. That's not fun for them. So he's in this weird conundrum of not being able to have a way to implement. And that's the difference, guys. If you are trying to do something in your world to move forward, you're trying to improve yourself as an adult. Whether this is you physically, your financial setup, your relationships, whatever it is, guys, the information itself, first of all, is not holding you back, because we have endless information available to us, and there are endless amounts of structured discussion that you could be involved in around whatever it is that you want to get more information about. But secondly, the information alone is never going to implement the change. It won't make change if you just try to learn. if you just try to read, you just try to hear, input is not the difference. It's when you go back out and do stuff with that information. Even if you don't have any information, you're going to learn so much faster by doing stuff, even if you do it wrong. If you go out and you try dating, for example, okay? Dating is all over the place, especially right now, it's really crazy. But even when you could get into that awkward engagement with the opposite sex, and you could be around them and say the wrong stuff and feel real weird or whatever, things may not go the way that you wanted them to, but you learn how not to do it. All right? And so in any experience, in any engagement, the implementation series is always going to have a result of you win some or you learn some. Now, there's learning on both sides, but you never lose. That's the magic. Is experience has no negative downside. But structured learning without implementation is guaranteed as a method for failure, because the information is worthless unless you can do something with it. So if you've bought a course, or you've taken a class, or you watched a show or a series or whatever it is, you've been involved in masterminds, you've talked to people, you've gone all this effort into taking information in. If you want something to be different in your world, you got to step up and do something with that information. And you got to surround yourself with other people who are implementing. If you're surrounded by a bunch of structured discussion and nobody that you're involved with is actually doing anything, you're probably going to follow that path. So really find what it is that you want to learn, with the intention of having that information help you move forward in the direction of your goals. Because goals are just directions, guys. They're not endpoints. We decide, oh, I want to have this, or I want to do this, or I want to be this. And we decide what action we can take to help us go in that direction. Having more information about how to possibly do that more effectively is important, but it only matters if you do it. And even if you don't have the information, you can still just go out and make action happen and learn how not to do it, and then go back out, oh, let me try a different way. Oh, let me try a different way. Thomas Edison failed 1,000 times before he invented a light bulb. He knew what he was trying to create, a way to illuminate the world. He didn't know how to do it because there was no structured information around it. It had never been done before. He had to try over and over and over and over and over through implementation of estimated whatevers. He thought, oh, maybe I'll try this way. No, that didn't work. Oh, let me try this way. No, that didn't work. He had to do that 1,000 times, literally 1,000 times before the light bulb that we use today was invented. And so, guys, really my whole rant here is, no matter what it is that you're exposed to in information, you can sit in Clubhouse all day long, you can be on a webinar, you can get into Zoom calls, you can be face-to-face. I don't care what the environment is for designed, structured discussion. None of it will matter unless you apply the knowledge you get from that. You have to go out and do things every single day to move yourself forward towards the direction where you're trying to go. And so for me, I have very specific things that I want to accomplish. I don't know all the right steps, but I know where it is that I want to go. And I try to engage with the right people that I feel can give me a little bit of a leg up on this. But at the end of the day, those people giving me the information aren't requiring me to do anything. It's up to me. I have to be my accountability piece. Myself and the people around me only get the benefit of me implementing this information if I actually do it. And really, guys, most people don't care what you do in life. They're here to engage with you because there is a mutual benefit during that engagement. Maybe it's an emotional connection. Maybe it's feeling good about a transfer of information, whatever it comes down to be. But most people are not there to hold you accountable for the implementation side. And that's what we're seeing in school. Teachers are not required to have kids implement information. They're required to pass along that information and show that there was a temporary regurgitation to be able to put that information back down on a piece of paper that says, hey, here's what we talked about. Not here's what I did, or here's what I know, or here's what I experienced. It is strictly about here's what the discussion was on. And if that's as far as you ever go, you're going to forget that information as soon as you leave the environment. So guys, get whatever information you feel you need, but spend very little time on that. Spend most of your time, 80%, at least 80% of your time in action, in motion, on things that you think are going to take you in the direction you want to go in. Because it's that 80-20 rule, 80% of the results happen in the last 20% of the time. And most of your results come from experience based on implementation. It has nothing to do with how much you think you know. Because guys, I work in a world of millionaires. I'm not a millionaire myself, but I am surrounded by them. And I see people every single day holding up this award. There's actually a millionaire award that my company created. They've created over 1,000 millionaires, which is crazy. But this millionaire award is held up by people who are not necessarily smarter than me or that know more than me. The only difference between their financial bank account and mine is a dedicated structure of implementation towards a specific goal. That's it. That's the only difference they have that has allowed them to reach that financial goal of becoming a millionaire or making 10 million or 100 million. Yeah, there's people that made $100 million selling the same thing over and over. It's absolutely crazy. So guys, I appreciate your time today on a Saturday. I'm out here walking in the cold, getting my work in, making things happen for myself. If you're struggling with any kind of structured implementation in your world, reach out, let me know. I'll be here as an accountability piece for you to at least check in. Hey, how's that thing going? What steps are you taking? These are the things that take it from a structured discussion to actual learning, because you have the experience of using that information that you can recall on to says, hey, here's what I did. Here's the next step I'm going to take. All right. So I appreciate you guys. Let me know if you need help with anything, and I will see you next time.